Hi, this is Lisa with Holland Designs Crochet. I'm going to be demonstrating for you today how to make the Lifesaver squares from the Nautical Summer Crochet Along. So I'm going to begin the center of my nautical themed square, this particular one, the Lifesaver square, starting with a magic ring and inserting my hook, pulling my loop through, doing a chain 1 to secure it, and I'm going to be working into the center of this magic ring and just working 6 single crochets for my first round. I am working with a darker color, so it may be a little bit harder to see, but it's just some basic sort of amigurumi techniques that you're going to be using to create the center of the square. So I have 6 single crochets to start, and then I just tighten my magic ring, magic knot, and then that's the end of round 1. So I'm not joining, just working continuously in rounds. Round 2, I am going to be placing 2 single crochets in each of the single crochets around for a total of 12. When I'm working these rounds, I find it easy enough to simply count my 12 stitches. I don't necessarily have to use stitch markers, but you can definitely use a stitch marker if you want to keep track of the end of the round. So that's my 12 for round 2. Round 3, similar, just doing single crochet in next, 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Doing that 6 times around will get 18. So on each of these rounds we're increasing by 6 stitches total. So at the end of round 3 I'll have my 18 single crochets. Now on the next round, when I get to round 4, I think I've got 18 now. Yes, I've just double checked, I've counted it, I've got 18, so I've finished my round. The 4th round, again, I'm going to be increasing by 6 stitches, so I'll have 24 at the end of round 4, but instead of doing single crochets, I'm going to do half double crochets, and the reason for that is the half double crochet has 3 loops, and I'm going to want to have one of those loops available at the back of my work later for when I add my accent color for the buoy or the Lifesaver. So I'll just be working half double crochets for round 4. So I'll do half double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch for my increase, and repeat that a total of 6 times around for round 4. And it would be easier to use a slightly lighter color if you chose to. Obviously easier to see your stitches if you're using a lighter color. I do like the combination though of navy and white, very much a nautical combination, so I had some navy on hand, so I chose to use that for these particular squares, but you could use another shade of blue perhaps if you wanted to. And when you get to the end of round 4, you're going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and then fasten off. And then the next part is the part that I really wanted to demonstrate for you, which is the way that you actually work the buoy or the Lifesaver ring in white. So I'll just finish my 4th round here and then come back and show you how to do the actual short rows of the buoy in white. Okay, at the end of round 4, I've got my 24 half double crochets. I'm going to fasten off, and pull my string out. So now I'm going to move on and use the white, and I'll just show you how we do this working in short rows to create so it's a simple cable buoy that we're making. So we're just going to make a slip knot to attach our yarn, and then just joining in any stitch on round 4. We're going to be working through the top 2 loops. So we're going to join with a slip stitch initially. So what I was saying before about half double crochets is you have the 2 top loops, and you also have a third loop at the back. And so because we're working into the top 2 loops, there will be this third loop at the back that we can then pick up later when we're doing the accent color for the buoy. Again, it's a little bit harder to see with the darker blue that I'm using, but I'll show you when we get to that part that there is a third loop here at the back of your work. So I just initially joined with a slip stitch, and I'm going to do a chain 5. And then I'm going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, skip the next chain, work a V-stitch in the next chain, and the V-stitch in this pattern is a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, all in the same space. Also skip the next chain there. We're going to join in the same stitch at the base of that starting chain with a slip stitch, and then also join with a slip stitch in the next half double crochet. And then we're just going to turn our work and work back the other way along the rows that we've just created here. Sorry, get my string out of the way. Okay, so we're going to work back the other way now, and we're going to work a back post single crochet around the first double crochet, a chain 1, a back post single crochet around the next double crochet, and then single crochet in the last single crochet at the end of the row. And so that combination of stitches, the back post single crochet, the chain 1, and the back post single crochet worked across that V-stitch. I refer to that as a back post V-stitch in the pattern. And then you're going to turn at the end of that row. So you've created a bit of a raised, textured, what I call a simple cable. And then you're just going to repeat this process, single crochet in the next single crochet, work a V-stitch again in the chain 1 space, again join with a slip stitch in the same stitch at the base of the previous row, and then slip stitch in the next stitch. Again, turn your work, repeat the process, back post single crochet, chain 1, back post single crochet in the last single crochet of the row, chain 1, turn. So you can see each time you do those 2 rows, you're creating that simple cable. So as you work around, you'll have a total of 24 stitches that you're working into, and you should have 24 of these simple cables, and it'll be made up of 48 rows. And there will be later on a short seam here that you just will sew with whip stitch when you join the short ends of the rows together. So you just want to continue around in that same manner, repeating those rows with the V-stitches and the back post V-stitches until you've worked all the way around. So at the end, I would just recommend double check the count of the simple cables to make sure you have 24 of them. When you get to the end of the round, your very last repetition, you'll end up working again a slip stitch in the same space at the base of the starting chain for when you get to your last one. So let me go ahead and finish this round, and I'll come back and show you the next steps as well. I've just finished my 24 simple cables, or my 48 rows. You can see I do have this opening here, which I'll need to sew later. So what I'll do when I finish the next round is I'll just leave a little bit of a length of yarn so that I can sew this seam later. But now that I've finished the last row of the simple cables, I'm just going to join with a slip stitch, and then in the first row do a chain 1, and then just work a round of single crochet, just working into the ends of the rows all the way around. So I'll end up with 48 single crochets since I had 48 rows. So that'll be my stitch count, 48 single crochets. And this is just the edging round for the Lifesaver, so that gives us a nice straight edge. So after I finish this, the next step will be the accent color, and that you can pick whatever color of choice you'd like. And I'll show you firstly the first style, which has 4 loops, and I'm going to use just this turquoise blue. So I'll show you that in the next clip. I'll show you now how to add the accent color loops to the Lifesaver squares. So this is the wrong side of the circle, which will become a square. And we do have little remaining loops here at the back. These are the remaining loops of the half double crochet stitches of round 4 of this center section. So we'll initially begin with simply joining with a slip stitch, just in any of those loops at the back. You should have 24 of them, since there were 24 half double crochets. So I've got my first joining slip stitch, and then I'm going to work a slip stitch in the next 5 loops. So I have a total of 6 slip stitches so far. So the joining slip stitch plus 5 slip stitches. From here I'm going to create my first long loop. So I'm going to do a chain 3, double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook, and then repeat that process 2 more times. Chain 3, double crochet in 3rd chain from hook, again chain 3, and double crochet in 3rd chain from hook. So that is the long loop that I'm creating. And then I'm just going to continue again with my slip stitches. So I'm going to do 6 slip stitches at the back. So I've got 6, and then again repeat the same process. So at the end of this round, I will have 4 long loops that I've created. The last one will be at the end here. So I'll finish this round and I'll show you how we continue after we've created the accent color loops. So I've just completed my 4th long loop, and I'm just going to join with a slip stitch in the same place as the first joining slip stitch, just so to complete that round. And I'm just going to fasten off, and I'll secure and weave these ends in later. My 2 little ends, just going to knot them. Okay, so I've got my 4 loops, and because I had 6 slip stitches between each, I know that they're placed correctly so that they're going to be positioned properly, just so that you're going to have an even amount of space between each one. So what I'm going to do now is simply pull these loops through to the front side of my work. So I'm just going to put my crochet hook through at the base of this white here, and just catch this and pull it through to the front of my work, and pull it through completely and lay it neatly like that. And I'm going to do that with the other loops as well, and just make sure that you basically insert your hook sort of at the center of where that loop is, and then just pull it through to the front. So these will be secured when we work the next round. And then my last one right here. Okay, so they're just going to be pulled up to the height of that row. It's basically the correct height. So now you're just going to want to lay them neatly so that as you begin with one of these and joining, I'm going to again start with my navy. I'm going to join it so that it is positioned where I want it to be. And then as I continue with the correct stitch count, these will automatically be in the correct position with the same number of stitches between each of these. So I will grab my navy and start and show you how to do the joining round. Okay, I just made a slip knot with my navy, and I'll just begin with the joining round. And the joining round is just a simple round of single crochet. Initially, your first stitch you're going to join by putting your hook through this accent loop and then straight through an adjacent single crochet of the Lifesaver, and just work your first single crochet that way so that your loop is secured. And then just continue on. So we have 48 stitches on this round here. So we're going to have a total of 12, including this first one, before we join the second loop. So we're just going to continue. So we had our first one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then again, we'll start with the next loop. Just make sure your loop is not twisted, and join through the loop and through the next single crochet. That's our first stitch of our 12. And then we begin our count again with number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then join our next loop again, inserting our hook through the loop and through the next stitch. And that's our first stitch of the 12. Okay, and then the last one, just secure that. And I'll just complete the rest of the stitches of the round and join with a slip stitch to my first single crochet. After this joining round is done, we have 2 more rounds with the navy, and those are the rounds that will create the square. And then finally there will be an edging round, again done in white, and I just decided to do an edging round in white on all of the squares, just so that when they're sewn together you don't really see the stitching of the sewing. So that's the end of that joining round. As we continue, we're going to do a chain 1 single crochet in the next 5. Then we're going to do 3 double crochets in the next stitch. Chain 2, and then 3 double crochets in the next stitch. So the double crochets are worked in 2 separate stitches. And then we have 5 more single crochets. So that is our first corner that we've created of what's going to become our square. And so we had 5 single crochets, we had 6 double crochets worked over 2 stitches, and 5 single crochets here. So we've worked across a total of 12 stitches. And so we'll be repeating the same process 3 more times to create the 3 additional corners, and we'll have our square completed. So let me just finish that round, and then I'll come back and show you the next round. All right, I finished the 4 corners of that round. Again, I joined with a slip stitch, do a chain 1, and I'm just working single crochet in each stitch across to the corner, chain 2. So this is the last round I'll be working in navy. So I work a single crochet in each of the stitches to the chain 2 corner, and then in the corner I'm going to work 4 single crochets. So the stitch count at the end of this round should be 80 single crochets. And then the edging round that I work next in white, I'm not going to increase any stitches at the corners. I'll just be working 80 single crochet around, so it'll help it to lay really nicely as well. And all the squares in this pattern do have a edging round that has 80 single crochets to finish each square, so that it makes it easy for you to sew them together. They should all be relatively the same dimensions. So again, 4 single crochets at each of the corners. And then after this one, you just do the edging round in white, or whatever color you choose to use to help everything be brought together neatly when you do join all the squares of different textures and different colors together. It's nice to have a bit of an element to them with the edging round that brings everything together nicely and keeps it all neat. So it's quite a cute little square, nothing too complicated. It's nice that you don't have, you know, like an applique type of style where you might look at this and think that you had to sew this on, but the fact that it's all made in one piece, and once the ends get woven in, it actually looks quite neat on the back as well. So this is the Lifesaver square, and I will show you also a short clip of the alternate way of doing the accent loops, where you just have basically a double loop at the 2 sides. So I'll quickly just show you how to do that as well. I'm working today now on the second style of Lifesaver square. This one is different. You can see from the first style. The first style had the 4 loops positioned, 2 at the sides and then 2 at the top and bottom. This one has 2 loops back to back at the sides, and it's worked in the exact same way. You're just going to join with a slip stitch at the back, working into those remaining loops from round 4 of the half double crochets, and you're going to be slip stitching around, working your long loop, joining again, working a second long loop, and then continuing with your slip stitches across here, and then working the 2 loops right next to each other on this side, and then of course pulling them through to the right side of your work as you begin the joining round. So the joining round, you're going to begin initially joining through the first, this loop here. So it's the second of 2 loops. You're going to join into this one first, and you're going to have your single crochet join, and then you're going to continue working in single crochets across. You'll have a total of 22 single crochets after the join before you get across to the opposite side and again join the next loop. So that's 12. that's 20, 21, and 22, and then the next loop, the next stitch, I'll join through the loop and through the single crochet, and then I will do the same thing with the second loop in the next single crochet, so you can see that they're going to be joined directly next to each other, and then from there just continue on around and finish up the round with the same thing, just joining here at the side. So the rest of the square is exactly the same as what I showed you for the first square, so you can just refer to that and refer to the written instructions as well. So you will again have a beautiful finished square, just another style. So it adds another little bit of interest and variety to the pattern, that you have more than one option for this particular square. So I will also now give you a close-up look at how my Afghan or my blanket is coming. I'll show you the squares that I've made so far, and I'll show you what they look like now that I've joined them together, so you can get an idea of what this blanket will look like as it continues to grow. And so I'll show that with you now. This is what my blanket is looking like so far. So you can see I've got the one style of buoy or lifesavers going this way, and then I've got the second one here. In between, I've got these ocean waves, sort of textured, rippled squares. I've just done them in different shades of blues and greens, sort of like the ocean. I also have a simple cable square here. So these squares will be repeating later as the blanket continues to grow. So I'll be putting another buoy square here in the corner like this one, or a similar style. And it's kind of fun just to play around with the colors and create a really interesting, really beautiful blanket, and just play with different color combinations. So I do have some more squares to design yet as well, but at the time of the release of this video and this update to the ebook, I will have the instructions for all of these squares in the ebook. I will film yet next week a video demo for these two squares in case you need it, although they're relatively simple. I'll still just create a bit of a demo for that, and then I'll see what I get up to next week with designing other squares as well. So I hope you're enjoying this pattern, and I look forward to seeing what you are working on. If you want to share your projects with me or load them on Ravelry, if you do that, be great to see what your blanket is looking like so far.